We've all got our imperfections, all of us. We all have that in common. None of us are perfect, but we just do the best we can with what we have.
Hmm.
And we try not to compare ourselves because comparison is the thief of joy. When
Mm,
somebody told me that a long time ago, I never forgot that. If you were meant to have be taller or shorter or whatever, our maker would have made us that way. Every one of us, you, me, and everybody watching this podcast right now, has exactly what they need to reach their destiny. They have
yes,
every single tool they need from our maker. So just focus on that and don't try to be somebody you're not. Because if you had
right.
something you're looking at in another person, oh, I wish I had that, it would be a burden and not a blessing because it's not meant for you. It's meant for them. But you have gifts that they don't have. So just embrace what you have.
Welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Carlaccio, coming to you from the Greater New Haven, Connecticut area. As an emotional intelligence, or EQ coach, I'm committed to helping people develop both emotional intelligence and mental fitness. That is, you'll come to regard problems as situations that help you learn and grow. EQ is a way of being and doing in the world that enables you to develop and sustain a positive relationship with yourself and others, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Please subscribe to this podcast and tap the like button so more people can enjoy the benefits of EQ. And now, here's the show.
All right. Hello and welcome everybody to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. And I have somebody here who embodies that exactly. His name is John Cadillac Seville. How are you today, John?
Jamie, I'm doing great. I'm hanging out with you and a whole bunch
That's
of your
right.
viewers. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. It is. So let me just tell our guests a little bit about you. Because and you gave me a very brief bio, so I hope that in our conversation we can learn a little bit more about you. So for those of you who don't know John Cadillac Seville is a Billboard Radio Personality of the Year nominee several times. He's a podcaster, he's a voiceover talent, he is a social influencer, and he is the president of John Seville Entertainment. He is also the senior director of Melaleuca. He's a fitness enthusiast, a counselor and mentor, and John has been a wonderful mentor to me too, a kind of a spiritual slash, I don't know, positive mentor, I would say. And he is married to the lovely Patty, and he has been since 2008. And they live in Guilford, Connecticut with their two, in John's words, kitty boys.
Oh, my boys, yes.
You
Very
have
well
boys.
done. I mean, you regurgitated that so well. You memorized it all, Jamie. I'm impressed.
Well, you didn't give me a dissertation. Some people give me a book, and it's like, I don't know if I can say all of that.
Oh, no, no. Just a
So,
couple things are good, and whatever you want to add is fine. But I just can't wait to chat with you and just see where this goes.
okay, well, let's get right into it. So, this is a podcast on emotional intelligence, and I asked you specifically to be on this podcast because you are one of the most positive people that I have ever met. And I just think that when you come into a room, you light it up, you make people feel good about themselves, and you have that kind of aura that speaks volumes without even saying a word. You just come in with some kind of brilliance. And John, you and I have talked a lot. I know that we share a lot of spiritual values and we share the value of emotional intelligence. But I'm wondering if we could just get to know you a little bit. Would you mind telling us just a little bit about maybe growing up and what influenced you to be the kind of person you are today?
Jamie, I've been very fortunate. I mean, I'm adopted.
Oh,
So,
you are?
yeah, I'm adopted. I have
I
an
didn't know
adopted
that.
brother, adopted sister. And, but, I was raised in North Branford, Connecticut,
Hmm.
and then moved to Guilford, Connecticut, and went to school in that town and got involved in all different kinds of sports and theater and music. I mean, I sang in a band. I did a lot of, community theater, high school theater, college theater. I wanted to be as well versed as I possibly can. And I did have a deep faith ever since I was a kid. My mom and dad brought me to church, but my faith has really grown over the years. But I've always wanted to be this kind of a person who's well versed, is able to get along with all different kinds of people, because I'm fascinated by people. I love people. I love to hear their stories. I love animals. I just don't want to ever lose that childlike curiosity. And I'm not sure exactly where that came from, my parents to a point, but it's something I think that I've innately had my entire life.
I want to go back to that because that's extremely important. This idea that you have a childlike curiosity. I meet so many people these days who feel jaded and cynical and, very glass half empty kind of a thing. And I see you as a glass half full or all the way full, maybe even just brimming over. And I want to know what it is that has helped you. You talk about curiosity, and one of the sage powers, if you will, in emotional intelligence and positive intelligence, we talk about saboteurs, the judge, and then 9 accomplices that are always running through our head at any given moment. But
Right.
the inner sage is the sage that is full of empathy for self and others, and is a sage who explores. So let's say something doesn't work. And instead of saying, well, that didn't work, forget it, let's just forget it, we're not going to do it, it doesn't work, it's explore and ask questions. And that's that curiosity. So, how has curiosity served you as a professional? And how did you get into being a DJ? Was that just a natural progression of your interest in theater? I asked way too many questions, sir.
No, there's a lot there, but I think, we were talking about the saboteur and things. It's like watching those cartoons, and you would have the
Yes.
angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other. And
Hmm.
we all hear those voices all the time. And 75% of the time, they say that when we wake up in the morning, it's negative thoughts that come into our mind right away. So I feel like I'm a tennis player volleying the ball back and forth. Negative comes in, I'm sending the ball over the net again and going positive. And then negative comes back again. So I'm always replacing negative with positive all the time. And that's become a natural reflex with me, I think, due to
Ah,
my faith. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm very intentional about my day. I do my prayerful work. I do my gratitude exercises. I do my yoga. So it's like
mm.
mind, body. And I want to develop that spiritual mental armor before I go out into the world to give me that protection I need against all the negativity out there. And
Yes.
I'm hoping to be that bright light. I know it sounds Pollyanna, kumbaya,
Yes, it kind of
but
does.
but that's how I live my life,
I
Jamie.
know.
I have negative days like anybody else. I have days where I doubt myself. I
Do
question
you?
myself. Oh yeah, I question my own abilities sometimes, whether I really matter sometimes, and I
Mm.
have fears
Mhm.
like anybody else has. But I just choose to focus on whenever I feel that way. I just say, Jesus, help me. Father, help me. How do you see me? Not how I see me or the world, but how do you see me? And then I,
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. I'm going to come back to that, but I want to capitalize on something else that you said, and that is that we all have the saboteurs every day.
every
And you start your day with 3 things. You start, in prayer and in gratitude, and
yes,
then you take care of your physical body through breath work and yoga. I
yes,
do the same exact thing. And I I tell people that I see every day at work, I get my coffee
right.
because that's I
Oh,
have
gotta
to
have
have my
coffee.
coffee. I
Gotta have
love my coffee. But
me
the first
too.
thing I do is I go back to bed and I meditate and pray. And when I wake up, I'm feeling anxious. But when I get out of bed to start my day, I'm in a completely different frame of mind. And I cannot emphasize enough how important that part of my day is. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time and I'm busy. Wake up a few minutes early.
That's an excellent point. Wake up a few minutes early. Successful people, many times, they'll take an extra half hour, 45 minutes. And what you can accomplish in that time, as you know as well as anybody, it's amazing what you can do in that half hour, 45 minutes. And I'll say, well, God is worth it to me. I
Hmm.
have very, very deep faith like you do too. Some people call it the universe, whatever they do, and
Hmm.
I admire and I respect what they do. But to
Yep.
me, it's God, and I just
Hmm.
want to let Him know that He's first in my life, and
Yeah.
and, and He is the one who opens up the doors. He's the one who makes things happen. He's the one who gives me that hedge of protection wherever I go. So he's my source, and everything else on this planet is a resource. So I want to
Right.
keep him first and foremost each and every day. Am I successful every day with that? No. Do I have challenges every day? Absolutely. We all do. But in the Bible, it says rain falls on the just and rain falls on the unjust.
Hmm.
So we're all going to have challenges.
Yeah. Right. We are. And I want to also go back to this idea of sort of the negative voice over here and the
Mm.
positive voice over here. And just say, because what you said, and I don't want us to gloss over it because it's so important. When you have a negative thought, okay, yep, here it is. Here's the negative thought. I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to succeed here, or that person doesn't like me, or this thing went wrong, or whatever. But we can change our thoughts,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
you can, and that's why I think of it as reframing, and in cognitive behavioral therapy, that's what it's all about. It's about looking at your thoughts and seeing them and noticing them, and then deciding whether or not they serve your highest good. And a thought that says you're not good enough, nobody likes you, this isn't right, those don't serve your highest good, however you want to define that.
I mean, my whole thing is change the channel. If you don't like a certain
Yes.
TV show, you change the channel. There's 500 channels, whatever it may be. And if you don't like that movie, go watch another movie, you know.
Hmm.
And it's the liar, it's the evil one speaking to you, telling you you're not worthy. Who do you think you are? And trying to bring back all the failures you've had in your life and put it on a loop. That's not healthy.
Yeah.
And that happens with all of us. Each and
Hmm.
every human being goes through that, but we just have to learn, like you said, to cognitively change the channel
Hmm. Hmm.
and just focus on what's good about us. We always want
Yeah.
to go negative, but what is good about us? What do you like about yourself?
We have
Right?
magnifying minds.
Yes.
And so, as some people have said, what you focus on grows.
Yes.
And so if you're focusing on things that you perceive as wrong or bad, then everything is like a carpenter with a hammer, everything's a nail.
It's magnified.
Yes, we
You're gonna
have
magnify the
magnifying
good,
minds.
magnify the bad. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And so we can choose. And that isn't to say, like you were saying earlier, that everything's perfect and hunky dory all the time. But one thing I learned 20 years ago, I learned this from Eckhart Tolle, actually, from The Power of Now. And
Yes.
I've probably said it on this podcast before, but I'm gonna say it again and again.
It's
And that
worth
is,
hitting it again.
there's no such thing as problems. There are situations.
Mm.
And as soon as you change the word problem to situation, the thing itself may have happened. You got in a car accident, you're late to work, you lost your job, something happened, whatever, things happen.
Yeah.
It's a situation that demands a response.
Mhm.
And so, how do we choose to respond to stuff? And then that goes into building that time in for mindfulness in the morning, trains your brain,
Yeah.
which is a big fat muscle.
That's
And
right.
we're training our brain.
Mhm.
I talk about the PQ gym, the positive intelligence gym, or the emotional intelligence gym. It's a muscle that just needs to be trained. But just like anything, if you don't exercise it, it gets flabby.
They say neuroplasticity. Somebody told
Yes.
me that once with the brain, and it's really true. I mean, we are
Yeah.
what we think each and every day. That manifests on the body, and so
Yes.
many things of what we say can really change our whole reality in
It
so many.
does.
So let's just speak faith and speak faith into other people too, because so many people have a negative attitude or they're a negative self-image. And just by saying one thing and make it sincere, because people can tell if you're
Hmm.
not being sincere. But
Yeah.
if you're really good to people and you uplift them, change their whole trajectory.
It can change. A smile can change a
Yeah,
person's day, right? How are you doing today?
right. What's
And
good today? What's
yeah.
good today?
And sometimes it's as simple as, maybe for women, I mean, I don't know for men, but if it's a woman, I might just say, I really like your shoes, or I
Mm,
like the way you did your nails, or I pay them a personal compliment that's honest,
yes,
as a way of almost establishing a connection.
right. Yeah, and that's great. I mean, everybody appreciates a compliment, you
Hmm.
know, as long as it's sincere, and
Right.
find something good with someone, everybody you meet that you can say something good to, that, and no matter who you run into, there's something
Hmm.
about them that's good. And
Yes.
just focus on that. Don't assume that if somebody looks good that they're getting compliments all the time. Many times they're not, because
Yeah.
people are afraid to be vulnerable, or they want to hold back the compliment for whatever reason. Freely share it.
I have to tell you, somebody complimented me today and
Yes.
then apologized for the compliment.
Really?
Yes. And I said, no, no need to apologize. I really appreciate it. And thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he paid me a really lovely compliment, but because he was a man, he felt like he might have done something wrong.
Hmm.
And it was a very innocent compliment and a very nice one and a very honest one. And I thought it was lovely.
Right.
And but he apologized because he was afraid that I might take it the wrong way.
That's too bad that we have to feel that way. But I know it's the world we live in right now, and the political mores and some of the things that are going on. But just feel right, feel confident. But I mean, I admire the fact that he was um, conscious enough to do that. He was respectful enough to do that.
Yes.
I mean, we shouldn't really have to, but I get where he's coming from.
Yeah, he was being very polite and very
Yes.
respectful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wanted me to know that. He wanted me to know that his compliment was honest
Right.
and coming from the heart.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was one thing. And going back to neuroplasticity, I actually wrote a little ebook on trauma and thriving, not
Mm.
just surviving, but thriving. And one of the things I talk about in this book is neuroplasticity. And, I think of our brain as, this big massive neural networks, and they're just these pathways that we've built over the years. And they've got grooves, right? Because I often use kind of an image like this. We've got the judge and the saboteur pathway that's very well trodden, and the grooves are deep. And so it's easy to keep going down those pathways because they're so well worn.
Right.
The sage pathway needs to be worn in. And
Mm.
so it might be uncomfortable or feel odd.
Yeah.
But if you continue to use that pathway, that will be the well worn pathway.
Sure. Let's go down the road less traveled. Right?
Yeah. And let's
You're gonna
make it more traveled.
exactly. And let's bring some people along with us too.
Yeah, yeah. Scientists say that we have maybe on average 64,000 thoughts a day,
Hmm.
and 95% of them are the same from day to day. So if you think about it, if 60,000 of your thoughts are, say, negative and they're the same day after day, you
Right.
can easily see why the uh, the kind of the saboteur pathway
It's a
is
vicious cycle.
the way it is. And
Yeah.
I think of it as like the rabbit hole because I used to go down that rabbit hole a lot. I I didn't have like a rosy childhood, and I've had a lot of challenges in my life. But when I discovered, I had an epiphany a few years ago when I discovered that I'm not my trauma, that my middle name isn't my job description
That's
or
your identity.
anything else,
That's right. It's
you
like when people
know?
say, well, what do you do for a living? I'll say I do this and that, but it's not who I am. It's what I do.
Yeah,
Big difference.
right, right. And I think our society asks us to identify so much with what we do for a living
That can
that,
be dangerous because if you lose that living, then all of a sudden
right,
your feeling of
right.
self-worth can just dissipate.
Right, exactly. So if our self-worth is tied up in our job description, and it is, and it's easy to see why, because we place a lot of value on different types of jobs or professions.
True.
And if your identity is tied up in that, and you have, like, I used to teach, and
Mm.
if I quote unquote had a bad teaching day, if I had a day where I didn't feel like I reached students, or the students, for whatever reason, the class just didn't gel or whatever, I felt bad.
Yeah.
And my whole self worth depended on how the classroom went that day. And I had to get out of that place because it was killing me to depend that my mood depended on an hour or two, that sometimes the circumstances weren't in my control. If a lot of students skipped class for whatever reason, it was a snowy day, they just didn't want to drive in or whatever reason, right? I had no control over that, but I would take it personally, or I would think, oh no, my class, whatever. And then my whole mood shifted into the negative, and it took away the joy of the work for me.
Yeah, and too many times people let their circumstances dictate their happiness. I
Yeah.
remember the Apostle Paul in the Bible said, I've learned to be happy in all situations. I've learned to be happy. And he referred to like all of his challenges as minor afflictions. Here's a
Mm-hmm.
guy that got beat with rods and wrote most of the New Testament in the dungeon and shackles and chains. And he called
Yeah.
that a minor affliction, Jamie.
Yeah. I think Paul was, yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. I know. Uh,
Well,
I happen to really like Paul.
I was saying to somebody before.
He's one of my favorite biblical figures.
Yeah. But we'll let a lot of
Because
times our mood being dictated by whether we get a check in the mail or not.
yeah.
Check, then all of a sudden we're happy that day. If it doesn't come, then we're in a bad mood for the rest of the day. We've blown that day. The check comes the next day, everything's good, but we can't get back that 24 hours that we just let that loom in our brains.
Yeah,
We
right.
do that.
And so that's why I value emotional intelligence so much. It's really why I started the podcast, because I started feeling so much freer when I divorced my self-image from my job and from anything that happened to me in the past. And when I stopped that, and I became a positive intelligence coach, and I also went into kind of life coaching and then recovery coaching, and all of those things helped me realize that resilience is important, and bouncing back, and again pivoting and innovating and exploring, and but I think empathy has been a huge thing, just learning to love myself, learning to accept my mistakes and accept my imperfections, and that they're not a death sentence or a jail sentence.
And we've all gotten our imperfections, all of us. We all have that in common. None of us are perfect, but we just do the best we can with what we have. And we try not to compare ourselves, because comparison is the thief of joy. When somebody told me that a long time ago, I never forgot that. If you were meant to be taller or shorter or whatever, our maker would have made us that way. Every one of us, you, me, and everybody watching this podcast right now, has exactly what they need to reach their destiny. They have
Yes.
every single tool they need from our maker. So just focus on that, and don't try to be somebody you're not. Because if you had something you're looking at in another person, oh, I wish I had that, it would be a burden and not a blessing, because it's not meant for you. It's meant for them. But you have gifts that they don't have. So just embrace what you have.
Right. And I like the idea of gifts. I want to just say to all of you who are either listening or watching, if this is resonating with you, please like and subscribe this podcast, because the more people who like and subscribe to it, the more visible it gets, and the more people get the message that you can live a life of your dreams. You do not have to be rich. You do not have to be famous. You do not have to be beautiful, or whatever that even means. But it really is an inside job, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And again, yeah, comparison is a thief of joy. And, I'll be the first to admit, I always want to be taller. I'm 5 feet tall. And so as soon as I was allowed, I started wearing heels, because I just never felt okay with my height. And now I don't care.
That's right. They say dynamite comes in small packages, and
Yeah.
you're dynamite in so many ways, my friend.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Guilford, Connecticut. I know you're a DJ. I know you host a show or two on a couple of radio stations. Can you say maybe just a little bit about that for the local people who might be watching or listening?
Sure. I mean, I'm very much involved in the community with my church, and I do a lot of fundraising activities. My wife says my biggest problem is I have a hard time saying no, because
Mm,
I mean, I want to help everybody. I just love, love, love. It just gets me going, the adrenaline when I can help people. I just believe in karma. Just go out
mm.
there and do the right thing, right? And I work at several different radio stations, most notably here and locally on iHeartRadio on the River 105.9, which is classic hits, 70s, 80s, 90s,
That's
all the
my
good stuff.
favorite.
And then Country 92.5, which, country music is so hot nowadays, and different formats whenever they need me. Top 40, hip hop, I can do anything. And then I have my DJ business, which primarily focuses on weddings, parties. We do all kinds of events. I have 5 DJs to keep busy. And this is
Wow.
a really busy time because people got engaged over the holidays. So a lot of them are
Oh.
looking for their vendors. So we're booking like crazy right now for weddings and that nature. So it's a good time of year.
Yeah, and I know you and I met each other through a networking group, and I
Yes.
remember you was saying how you were booking into the next year.
Yeah, even in the 27 right now.
Really?
Now I'm going to be doing weddings using a walker at this point, Shane. It's going to be whatever it
Oh,
takes. As long
I
as the Lord
know.
wants me to do this, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I love it. And you said you do some volunteer work or local work, community fundraising, such
Got a
as
lot of
what?
community fundraising and whatever we can. When people say community or helping out the military,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm going to be there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also want to put a plug in for some of there is a teach-a-thon going on at the dance studio where I take dance lessons, the Arthur
Arthur
Murray Dance
Murray.
Studio, Arthur Murray in Guilford, Connecticut, owned
Awesome.
by Todd and Carrie. They are
Love
amazing.
them. Love them.
And yes, and they're doing a teach-a-thon this weekend, and I've got a couple of lessons lined up, and I'm excited because they use that money. They're doing this teach-a-thon, and they're taking those proceeds and giving them back to the community. So I wanted to give a shout out to those guys because talk about giving back to the community. I started taking dance lessons as my son got older, and he is much more independent. He's a teenager. He's got friends and a car and school and everything. And so I started feeding my soul differently.
I
And
like that.
the way I've been feeding it is through dance lessons. And I have to say it has been a real game changer for me to just get on the dance floor. I started without knowing how to do any formal dance
Mhm.
whatsoever. And I have learned foxtrot and tango and hustle and East Coast and West Coast swing and waltz. And I am adding to my repertoire as we go along. I'm not in Dancing with the Stars, but I have a
That could
fabulous
happen.
dance
Count
instructor
yourself
named
out.
Manny who
Yeah.
and what I really like about these people, and again, I can't stop talking about them, but they make you feel good no
Mhm.
matter what you do on the dance floor.
That's a gift.
And everything is a high 10.
Yes.
After every day, after every lesson, after every practice move, it's a high 10. Thank you. That was great. That was wonderful. You could have stepped on feet left and right. You could have
which would
tripped over
which would be
yourself.
me. Which would
It
be me.
doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
all high 10. And that helps me accept that I'm not, facile on the dance floor. Maybe someday, but not right now. But I can go out and have fun, and it doesn't matter if I don't know how to do everything or if I forget a move. It just doesn't matter.
I admire people
And
get out there and get out of their comfort zone and just have some fun. Try something new. And
yeah,
it's just exhilarating. Even if people, I don't like to use the word fail. You and I talk about that all the time. But
yeah.
if it doesn't work out the way you want, you tried it. You did it. Pat
Hmm.
yourself on the back for doing something out of your comfort zone.
Right. Well, that's how we grow.
Yeah. If you just do the same thing each and every day and just kind of like roll through life or coast, you're never going to grow. I mean, your growth
Right.
comes from adversity or trying different things and maybe even, not getting exactly what you want out of it as far as maybe the success you want, but who cares? Get out there and have some fun, live life. It's not a
Yeah.
dress.
Yeah. And I think people can be self-conscious and we
Yeah,
don't
I am.
like to look dumb or look stupid or look whatever. But I'm here to tell you that if you can just take the chance and do something new, something that maybe you think about, or, oh, I wish I could do that, just try it,
Like somebody
you
has once
know?
said before, to be quite colloquial, you got to
Hmm.
suck before you're good, right? You got,
Yeah.
we're all going to be that way. People just don't pop out of a genie bottle and all of a sudden they're masters at what they do. There's some work going on there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And again, I think if we have to use the word fail, I think there's a phrase, fail fast
Or fail forward.
or fail forward. Yeah. And
I would say if you're
so,
going to fall forward.
yeah. And again, you can get back up and you can try again. And as as uh as I think I've heard Thomas Edison said it, you know, how why did you keep trying to invent the light bulb? You failed so many times. He goes, no, I didn't fail that many times. I found 10,000 ways that don't work.
Exactly. And the same thing with Colonel Sanders, with Kentucky Fried Chicken. He said things along the same line. Or Ben Franklin, one of the great inventors of all time. They just kept going, kept going. They weren't, the failure didn't really have, or the challenge didn't really have a big impact. He said, okay, this doesn't work. Let's move on. They had that
Right,
tunnel, they had tunnel vision. They were not going to stop until they found what they needed to find.
right, right. It's kind of like a dog with a bone.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the animal.
Yeah,
I just look at like a squirrel out there, and the squirrels are out there watching what they do each and every day. They don't let anything get in the way. They just keep going, going, going. They're so tenacious.
yes,
And they just don't. They just focus, focus, focus.
right. And they often, as I think I've heard, sometimes they forget where they've buried their nuts.
Yeah, I know. I've
And
heard
so
that
they're
too.
just out there digging around. So if you
Right.
wonder why you got a bunch of holes, it's because the squirrels forgot where they buried their stuff.
Why that happens with me a lot. I forget where I put my keys or whatever, so it happens.
Yeah, I have to put my stuff in the same place,
Right.
or I would leave my head at home sometimes, I think.
My head wasn't screwed onto me or bolted onto me. It'd be lost somewhere.
Yeah. And so I think what you and I are doing right now is practicing emotional intelligence. And one of the ways we do that is we're able to laugh at ourselves.
Laughter is wonderful. That's one of the greatest gifts we ever had or gotten from our maker. Laugh, laugh.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
does just for health benefits when you laugh. That's why when you wake
Yeah.
up, even before you go to bed at night, try to stay away from watching news first thing in the morning.
Oh, Lordy, Lordy, I do not do that.
Watch something funny. Watch
I
a
do.
favorite before you go to bed, or
I
for
watch dance videos.
yeah, whatever's going to make you smile. And that's the way to go to sleep at night. It's going to keep your blood pressure down. It's going to be
Mhm.
so much better for your overall health.
Oh, Lord, I know. I used to teach a course on the news and I loved it. And I actually was a journalist in another lifetime,
Hmm.
well before I started teaching. And so I've always been a bit of a news junkie. But since I stopped teaching, and I taught this course on the media and democracy in the digital age, and it was a popular course because people are interested in the news, and it was a really great way to understand how the media works in our
Mhm.
society and how oftentimes the news, the way that they get ratings is they basically create a culture of fear. So
Sensational.
and so if you're afraid, you keep watching because you maybe you need more information. And so the fear is actually what sucks us in, and then that just kind of, does a number on us.
Perpetuates and it just gets crazier and crazier.
Yeah. And then people think, oh, the world's terrible. Well, if you watch too much news, yeah.
Right. But there's
And
so
that
much
isn't to
more
say
good.
bury your head in the sand.
No, but there's so much more good out there. It's just they're not going to cover it because they've tried doing good news channels in the past and they've failed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's like when you're going down a highway, look how everybody stops when there's an accident. All the rubbernecking people just want to see the accident. What happened?
Well, I
And
think partly we also, I think I look too, mainly in hopes that I hope they're okay,
Yeah, same
or
here.
I need to slow down because there's something going on that is requiring me to pay closer attention.
Mm.
And so I think people look, but I'm hoping they don't look out of some kind of morbid satisfaction,
Or
but
like
out of maybe
voyeurism.
concern, like,
Mm.
oh gosh, something terrible happened over there. I hope it's okay.
But you also notice when people gossip, a lot of times people all of a sudden they just hone in on it. And
Yeah.
and I try to do my very best to stay away from gossip, negative, because I don't want to speak ill of people. You know, I just don't want to. If I'm going to speak about you, I'm going to honor you. So when it
Yeah.
gets back to you, oh, John said such and such a thing, it's always going to be good because it's going to get back to you at some point down the line. So I mean, that's one thing that's very dangerous, gossiping about others.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Character assassination, right?
Yes, and there's a lot of that going on. We see it all over the place.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, how do you feel about yourself?
Mhm.
And I think if you feel good about yourself, that allows you some space
Yes.
to feel good about other people.
And when people feel bad about themselves, they're more apt to lash out.
Right.
Instead
That's what I
of
mean.
yeah, instead of elevating themselves to
Hmm.
get better, they'll try to knock other people down to a certain level. It's
Yeah.
easier, and that can be a very dangerous thing.
Right. So I think the first thing we want to do, though, is create that structure and that foundation in ourselves
Yeah.
through empathy and, being willing to explore and being willing to admit you're not perfect, admit that you're still learning, you're still a work in progress.
That's right. Where the times we stop learning, the day we stop learning is the day we really exist. In a lot
Yeah.
of ways, we just really need to completely mature and be a better version of ourselves. But it is a journey. It is a journey.
Yeah, it is. It is a journey, but and there are times when these kind of cliched phrases come to mind and they get old, but they're true. The journey is the thing,
Right. It is.
because that's where the learning happens. That's where the joy comes. That's where you get to see things and experience things. If you already get where you're going, then without going on the journey, what did you learn? What did you gain?
Exactly. It's all about the learning process, and that's how we were talked about earlier. That's how we grow. That's how we
Yeah.
become better human beings, more empathetic, more caring.
Yes. And we need that.
We do. We do without question, especially in this day and
Yes.
age where our country is becoming more and more divided. We just
Yeah.
need it more than ever.
So I saw on, I think it was a YouTube short, somebody was saying that some people who are divided regarding the next president of the United States, that some people are taking it hard, and some people have sort of decided not to be nice to people who voted for the candidate that they didn't vote for.
Mm.
And that's just inimical to success. And that isn't to say I agree with people politically, because there are a lot of people I don't agree with, but I don't necessarily wish them ill.
No, remember back in the days when we can agree to disagree, or people back in the day when they voted, and you said, "Well, who'd you vote for?" They would say, "None of your business." They would never even tell you who they voted for back in the day. But my whole thing personally, whoever you voted for, it's not going to affect my friendship, with you.
Hmm.
I'm going to respect you, respect your view. I may not agree with it, but we can agree to disagree. But I'm still going to show you the love and respect as a fellow human being. I'm
Hmm.
not going to ostracize you or unfriend you on Instagram or Facebook because you voted for a certain person. To me, talking about emotional intelligence, that's not emotional intelligence in my view.
Right, right. Again, it goes back to feeling positive self-regard. And if you can feel positive self-regard, you're in you're in a much better place to offer that positive regard to others.
Sure,
And
sure.
again, nobody said this was easy stuff. There are times when it's hard to like certain people, or it's hard to be around certain things. But again, I keep coming back to being mindful, having that sovereign self, and drawing on the inner sage. One of the sage powers is navigate. And we oftentimes come to a crossroads and have to make a major decision, asking your older self, what would you tell my younger self right now? What would that 20-year older person say to this person? And, navigating those kinds of things, exploring, navigating, innovating, thinking outside the box, taking chances, failing up, failing forward, failing fast, whatever you want to call it, and then, taking action.
It's almost like when people say, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Right. Oh, don't we all?
Youth is wasted on the young or something of that nature. We heard those aphorisms everywhere.
Yeah.
But we've gotten to where we are right now. We need to celebrate where we are right now.
Yeah.
Warts and all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Well, John, you and I talked earlier. You had shared a song that you like, and I pulled it up, and I'm going to just share my screen and play just a small clip of it for our audience.
Go right ahead. I can't wait. I love this song.
Okay.
Candles on another birthday cake. Old enough to look back and laugh at my mistakes. Young enough to look at the future and like what I see. My best days are ahead of me.
Oh,
yes.
Man. Yeah, my best days are ahead of us.
Yes. Yes, they are. And so, live in today, live in the now, be mindful. But obviously, we do have to think about, what we're going to wear tomorrow, get up, do you know where you're going? You know what you have to do. But it is all about really, again, sticking in, staying in the present, thanking your source, your higher power, God, whatever, you feel drives you.
And we only have grace for today. Like it says, grace for tomorrow hasn't been given yet. So we focus on the grace we have for today, and it's going to be there tomorrow for what we need. But like you said, we really have to live in the moment so much, because if we don't, then we've wasted that time that we'll never get back again.
Right.
Faith over fear.
Right.
Worship over worry. Worship over worry.
Yeah, right. Now you've heard the phrase, I'm sure, if you worry, don't bother praying. If you pray, don't bother worrying.
I know, and it's easy.
There's something about faith. Yeah, and I've actually had this conversation with people that some people feel like if they're afraid, they don't have faith, and I don't think that's always true. I think you can have fear and have faith, but then ask for help to remove the fear. That's acknowledge that, here's the fear. I have faith. I'm asking for help right now.
I mean, look at the disciples who were with Jesus. They saw all the miracles he did in person, and they still feared. And so we don't have that luxury. We did not see in person what he did. So if we start doubting or we're afraid, cut ourselves some slack.
Yeah.
It's okay. God knows that. It's okay. You'll be fine. So we're all going to doubt. We're all going to have fear. But like you said, let's just hone right in and say, Father, I need your help.
Yes.
Father, help me understand what I need to understand. Ask him, and just draw him in, include him all the time, and he'll be there for you.
Yes. And that is a great way to end this podcast. Again, John, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Well, Jamie, many blessings to you. Thanks for all the great work you're doing. And we need to get a coffee date again at some point down the line.
Yes, absolutely. At Common Grounds. And that's in Brantford. Is that Brantford? I love that place.
Brantford.
Yes. And so again, if you liked what you heard today, please like and subscribe to this podcast. We need your support. Thank you so much. And we'll see you at the Emotional Intelligence Gym. Right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks. Bye-bye.